The lack of internet speed is one of the few downsides of living in rural France. Over the years, we have tried lots of ways to get good internet connection, and currently we're on 4G, which is proving to be quite expensive. And whilst there is a promise of fast fibre connection to our part of the world, as yet there is no signs of any installation. So, as it's relatively cheap in France, I thought I would give Starlink a go. Now of course you can wall mount it or roof mount it, but I chose not to do any of these things. And regular viewers of this channel will know we've got a small puppy, Bo, who would love to eat my receiver. So I decided to use a couple of pieces of timber I had taken from the bar a few weeks ago and craft something that looks like a garden obelisk. So using the instructions, which is a packaging from the top of receiver, I planned out with my timber what I could achieve. I am trying to make this video accessible to most people. So to construct the obelisk I'm going to use an handsaw and an electric screwdriver. However, for this stage I'm cutting up this timber because I had it available to me, but for people who do not have this kind of machinery, then just go down to the timber store and buy some 1.5 or 2 inch tannalized timber. Here I'm machining what I have down to 1.25 or about 32mm square. Right, so I've got my timber cut out. This is 32mm square, so it's the same squareness as the garden obelisk. And like the garden obelisk, I'm going to mark it out on this board before I put it together. Unlike the garden obelisk, it's going to be asymmetrical, so it's going to be wider in one plane than it is in the other. This is the packaging that came off the top of the Starlink receiver, so I can use this as a template. So basically it is 590 by 380. Kind of thinking something like that. So I'll make it the height of this. This is 900. So I'll probably make it about 850 tall then. Pencil and my square. So let's make it 850 tall. My Starlink receiver is that wide. So I'll make it probably about 4 inch, 100mm narrower at the top. Draw my leg on. My top piece. Hope if this weren't a bit bendy, but never mind. And then I need a 820. I need one of these round the middle, somewhere about 410. We don't have to go beautiful mind over this, as long as it's the same. So that is the shape of our two big sides. Like that, and like that. Now I'll make the other side the same, and what I'm going to do here, I think I probably just have this 50mm overhang. That's 50mm, and that's as width, 50mm back, and then the width right down at the bottom here, width there. So that's the geometry of our and that's the geometry of our end section, like that, like that, and like that. Easy peasy. Okay, so let's cut the legs for the long sides first. I'm not actually going to bother cutting the bottoms at the moment because I'm going to plant them in the ground, so I only really need to worry about the tops. If I get a couple of clamps. Okay, and the leg on, and just mark that line there, and I can mark that line there. I can square them through together, and the same there, mark that line there, that line there. I'll put a little arrow up for top, and I'll put a little mark on number one, so I know that that's a pair. And then while they're on the jig, I can mark that line, and that. Right, that one's cutting, Pair 1. Pair 2, inside, inside, number two, number two, or about the same. Right, the next little job is to make two tops, two middles. Pull them lines on and then just join them together. That line there, line there. Okay, so I've got my top piece. Could of course set my mitre saw up to do this. Clamp that down. That goes there. That goes there. Two A-frames. So I need to do that again, and then we'll do the shorter ones in a minute. One of them, two of them, two of them, and we're ready to go together. Two long ones, two short ones. Right, we've got as components. I'm just going to screw this together like I did with the garden obelisk. Now, one question I got a lot with the obelisk build was, when you're screwing through in two different directions, how come I didn't hit the screws in the opposite direction? Well, a screw diameter is about, I'm going to use some 4mm screws, probably 50 by 4s. We've got 32mm there, so we've got really enough to get 7 or 8 screws through, should we want to. We've only got to get 2 through, so 2 opposing screws are not going to hit each other if you're careful, and that's all it's down to, just being a bit careful when you're drilling your pilot holes. That goes up there, that goes up there, that goes in there like that, and that goes in there like that. It's just a case of countersink, putting a screw through and just carefully screwing it through. So let's just put a couple of clamps on, just makes it easier. Move that, my marks are there, let's just put that on the marks. Could actually put a clamp on there if easier, just holds everything together. So 4x50 screws. That's this first one. So let's put the other one together, and I'm going to put the other one together by sitting on top of this one. Up on the end. Right, there's us 2 frames. When I were a young lad, I wanted an Action Man training tower. This is pretty much it. I don't know why I didn't make one, or convince my dad to make one. If I remember rightly, it was an absolute fortune, and actually when you look at them on the internet right now, they're just a bit of plastic. Charge. Right. That's it, we're nearly there. Okay, so I'm going to put some filler in them holes and just let that dry while I do the next step. And the next step is I just need to run the block plane around and just level that up so it's completely flat on the top. Once it's planted in the ground and absolutely level on the top, I need to make a little tray that the receiver sits in, and I'm going to make it so I've got a little bit of play, because that little bit of fine tuning there might be what it needs, because once it's concreted in, I'm not going to be able to fix the whole thing round. So I just need to make sure I've got a few degrees of movement like that. So to do that, I need to make something of that size so the thing can sit on it. The foot of it's got a couple of screws in, a couple of holes in, so I can put a couple of screws through, and then maybe something lipped on the front just to stop the wind. I don't want the wind to get under it. I can do that. So to do that, I probably need to put a centre piece in, so I can drill an hole in and put a bolt in. And I think I'm just have to check, but I think the cable comes out more at the back here. So if I put a piece in here centrally, hopefully I've got enough wood left to make that. It's got one short leg. With the obelisk, I cut all the bottoms off to stop it rocking like I would with a stool. But I'm not that bothered with this, because at the end of the day, I'm going to plant it in the ground and concrete the feet in. It's dirty already. The rain we've had over this morning it's that rain we get sand in, probably Saharan sand. The car and everything's covered in it. Actually, might be central. Come out pretty much central. No, it comes out there, look, doesn't it? That's not central. So it's probably sat about maybe just slightly nearer than a third in. 1, 2. Look at the sky. It's a day of storm. We put this in just a bit to the front there. Then it gives the cable can drop down here somewhere. Don't want to use machinery all the time, do we? Man overboard. There we go. Because I'd already set up the Starlink here, I wanted just to put it on the stand in the same location to ensure that it worked properly. I just had to use some timber blockers to make sure it was level. Yes, happy it's still working the same. Come on, you two. Here is where I want to permanently site it. create a new flower bed just in front of the existing flower bed. So again, I placed it on some blocks and did another speed test to ensure I was getting the same reception. The Starlink app has an alignment feature, so I could ensure it was properly aligned before I fixed it down with the 2 screws. And conduct a final speed test to ensure it was still working perfectly.